Welcome to another edition of the Magic Ladies Podcast, where we discuss everything Orlando Magic basketball. I'm your host, Jalon Dixon, and today we got a lot of things to get into coming off of yet another loss for the Orlando Magic to the Philadelphia 76ers. We'll dive into that in a minute, but before we get started, remember to like, comment, and subscribe for daily Orlando Magic content. We are on the road to 1,000 subscribers. Thank you guys so much for getting me over that 600 subscriber mark. Let's just keep that ball rolling. We are fully locked in. This is still a team that's going to be one of the most intriguing teams in the Eastern Conference. So you want to be locked in every single day because we're covering every little bit of news we can about this team on the road to the postseason. So remember to hit that post notification bell so you always know when we're dropping new videos. And let's go ahead and get right into it. I think the reason why I'm stumbling over my words so much in the beginning of this intro is because I'm not really even worried about that right now. I'm worried about what's going on with the Orlando Magic these last three games. You get the big dub at home against the Miami Heat to kick off the season. You shoot 40% from beyond the arc and you look solid. And in these next three games, you just don't look right. You just look like you're almost playing out of your own body. Let's pull up the stats for the Orlando Magic in this game against the Philadelphia 76ers. Let's just do the basic breakdown and then go step by step, layer by layer into where the Orlando Magic go moving forward as they step into game two of what will be a 5-game road stretch for them, right? So the Orlando Magic lose this game 136 to 124. In this game, the Philadelphia 76ers took 15 more shots, shot 42% from beyond the arc to the Orlando Magic's 32%. We're not going to hound on the three-point shooting as much today, given the fact that we talked about that a ton the other day beforehand, and it seems that the issues have not changed much. Also, from a rebounding perspective, things were relatively even, but here's where things kind of stood out to me. The Orlando Magic turned the ball over 13 times to the Philadelphia 76ers 6 times. And in this game, they let Kelly Oubre get a double-double, 25 points, 10 rebounds, and VJ Edgecombe and Tyrese Maxey. That backcourt has been on an absolute tear to kick off the season, combined for 69 points. Nice. But where do we even begin? Where do we even begin? The basis of this game for the Orlando Magic is they are struggling to guard. And that's a weird thing to talk about when it comes to an Orlando Magic team where Jamal Mosley's bread and butter, if the Orlando Magic are going to be good at anything, they're going to be an elite level defense. If they're top 10 in anything, they're going to be a top 10 defense. And through the first 4 games, they have looked like anything but that. The guards in the backcourt for the Philadelphia 76ers were able to get to dang near everything they wanted to. It seemed like VJ Edgecombe was operating at all 3 levels of the floor, around the rim as a finisher, in the mid-range area, and as a pull-up shooter, he was knocking them down. Tyrese Maxey was getting to the basket at will, it felt like, all night, and this team was operating in transition in a way that the Magic want to play faster, but it seemed like the Philadelphia 76ers were just able to hit a completely different gear. It looked like they were in a track meet where they were completely outmatched because they were underprepared. And I'm not saying quite literally, but it felt like the team came in as that marathon runner that maybe did a couple sprints on the treadmill the coming weeks leading up to the marathon, but didn't really prepare for it, compared to the Philadelphia 76ers, who came into this game looking like a well-trained, well-oiled machine, coming into the game with the intention of being able to run this team out the gym. And quite frankly, the Orlando Magic did get ran out the gym. Let's talk about something that specifically on defense really bugged me in this game, and it's bugged me throughout the first 4 games of this season for the Orlando Magic. It's points in the paint. It's points in the paint. It's points in the 2-point range. Talk about the mid-range area as well. The Orlando Magic are giving up the 6th most points in the paint so far this season. And something that stood out to me too is that in the 2-point range, which again is that mid-post area, that mid-range area, and anything in the restricted area, they are, I believe it is, yes, they are 6th worst. Yeah, tied for 5th worst ish with the Toronto Raptors for the most points allowed in the 2-point area with 64. Here are the teams that are in the same area as them in that ranking: the Chicago Bulls, the Dallas Mavericks, the Golden State Warriors, the Atlanta Hawks, the Phoenix Suns. Outside of maybe the Dallas Mavericks, what do all of those teams have in common with one another? The common denominator is that they do not have a fully defined rim protector. All those teams do not have a fully defined elite level or even above average rim protector. Nikola Vucevic is not an above average rim protector. Golden State leaning on, I mean, you could say Draymond Green to a lesser degree with the fact that he plays small ball center for them, but Trace Jackson Davis, not somebody who's a defined rim protector right now, or a refined rim protector. Atlanta, they have Onyeka Okongwu. He's solid as a rim protector. Kristaps Porzingis back healthy now. Solid rim protector. Not an elite level or even like a crazy above average rim protector in terms of being able to really deter guys from the basket, even despite the fact that he's like 7'1". Phoenix, Mark Williams, more of an offensive skill set based center. And then you get to the Orlando Magic, who should, in theory, have a high level rim protector in Wendell Carter Jr. It is not looking like it so far. Not only is he struggling on the defensive glass and as a defensive rim protector, but he's not providing really any offensive stability in the middle as well. Something else that stood out to me: defensive efficiency. This is a little bit of a nerdy stat, but nonetheless, I think it's important to point out. From a defensive efficiency standpoint, this Orlando Magic team is 17th in the NBA. This was a team that had a top 5 defensive efficiency last year. And as far as I'm concerned, unless I completely missed something, other than Desmond Bane and Tyus Jones, this roster is basically the exact same. The exact same. Yet, here they are as a middle of the pack team defensively compared to the team that, despite being injury riddled all year long, was the second best defensive team in basketball last year. They are getting beat up on the inside, despite being one of the biggest starting lineups in the NBA. And more importantly, they are getting killed in transition, which is kind of a questionable feeling for anybody that's an Orlando Magic fan, because you've been told all summer that this team wants to play more up tempo. So to be completely ran out the gym means that you're not even close to being able to compete with the teams that actually have adopted this lead with transition play mentality. What does that mean for this team moving forward when you talk about some of these teams in the Eastern Conference mainly, right? The Sixers are going to be a problem for you. The Bulls are going to be a problem for you. The Indiana Pacers, even without Tyrese Halliburton, are going to be a problem for you in terms of playing up-tempo basketball. Now, the Orlando Magic in a series against the Cleveland Cavaliers, where you can be physical with them, or against the New York Knicks, where you can be in a physical matchup with them. Maybe it's a little bit more their speed, but based on what we've seen in 4 games, this team is going to have more trouble with the teams towards the bottom or the middle of the pack area of the Eastern Conference that love to run up and down and thrive in transition, compared to 2 or 3 of those top teams in the East that do a lot of their dirty work operating around the paint, or, in the case of the Cleveland Cavaliers, they're a big time 3-point shooting team, but they have 2 guys in Jared Allen and Evan Mobley that are lockdown defenders in that painted area. So the way you handle them or combat the 3-point shooting of them is to slow the game down and pound at those 2 bigs. That's going to make it a long year for this Orlando Magic team, because it's going to be a lot of them winning the games that we think they should, and losing the games that we know they should, that we know they shouldn't. And that puts them in a weird predicament, because that's not a team that's on pace to win 50 games. I mean, shoot, they're already not on pace to win 50 games just based off the logic. Again, only 4 games, but still. Let's move on to Desmond Bane, because this is something that I don't want to overstep the boundary on just yet. Again, we're going to preface this a lot through the first 2-3 weeks of the season of saying I don't want to overblow this, but I do have to identify said storyline. One of them is that Desmond Bain just does not look right now. And I don't think it's an injury thing. I think it's maybe a little bit of overthinking. I think it's trying to um almost be too passive to a certain extent in terms of integrating himself in this offense next to Paulo Banchero and Franz Wagner. I don't know what it is, but let me read the stats out for you just so you have a good indication of just how different he's been so far this season compared to years past. He's averaging 17.3 points per game in these well, it's going to be a little bit more after ESPN updates from me recording this, but he's averaging about 18 points per game, which would be the lowest since his second year in the NBA. He's shooting 26.7% from beyond the arc. Did not improve that very much against the Philadelphia 76ers, by the way. But shooting sub 27% from beyond the arc. He hasn't shot less than 38% in his entire career. And last year came off of shooting 39.2. Remember we did a whole podcast where we kind of almost semi-dedicated it to Desmond Bain and what he was going to mean to this team and what he was saying about wanting to take more three-point shots than he ever did at Memphis. Well, guess what? He's taking 5 3-point attempts per game, which is the lowest since his rookie season. The lowest since his rookie season. He told us he wants to beat his career high average, which was 2 years ago of 8.6, by hoisting up 9, 10, 11 3-point attempts per game. Shades of Malik Beasley and Anthony Edwards from last season. He's half of that. He's half of that right now. And it reminds me a lot, and I hate to invoke this PTSD of a thought for Orlando Magic fans from last season, but I have to do it. It reminds me a lot of the Kentavious Caldwell-Pope situation from last year. You bring in KCP from a championship situation with the Denver Nuggets. You bring him in with the intention of getting a 3-and-D wing who can improve your three-point shooting at a high clip. If he comes in and doesn't do anything else, he's going to defend and he's going to shoot the three ball at a 37+% clip because that's what he's done within his career. Here's the issue. The issue that got pulled from that, or at least this is what I identified as the problem, was KCP's value to the Orlando Magic was overstated because they didn't factor in this key point, which is that KCP, his last 2 stops, he played with 2 of the best facilitators in basketball, Nikola Jokic and LeBron James, and he won a title with both of them, right? As I said on this podcast, I think I've said this before, there is nobody on this team, and I don't think any Orlando Magic fan would feel disrespected by this, that is nearly the kind of facilitator that either one of those guys, Jokic or LeBron James, are. And so, therefore, the kind of looks that KCP was getting in Denver and in LA, he wasn't receiving them in the same light in Orlando. And I think it really hurt not his credibility, but his value to the Orlando Magic specifically as a team that brought him in to do exactly that. And now Desmond Bain has been good at putting more pressure on the rim from the perimeter and definitely has at least instilled this mentality in the Orlando Magic as a team to be more confident in taking the three-point shots. But this team still is only shooting like 25 to 28 three-point attempts per game. That's like bottom 10 in the league in terms of three-point attempts in today's NBA. So it's not like they're shooting them at this crazy high volume and they're just missing them. No, they're shooting them at a below average rate and they're not hitting them really at any true capacity. I mean, the other game, we talked about them shooting 3 of 24. If I can pull it up, they were 8 of 25 in this game against the Sixers. So Desmond Bain is not contributing to the three-point progression of this team. They're not that much better of an offense from an efficiency standpoint, even from a scoring standpoint. Don't let the 124 fool you. That's still going to put you around 15th in the NBA at best in points per game. And then you pair that with the fact that the defense is taking a major hit by this team trying to put so much more emphasis on speeding up their offensive output. I said it in the last episode, and I'm gonna stick to this. I don't want to overreact to what Desmond Bain is or isn't doing because of the fact that I know there's gonna be some growing pains of playing next to a different set of personnel. But this team needs to slow down. And I think that includes Desmond Bain as well. I think the reason why he's been so passive is not because he's slowed down, but actually because I think he's sped up. I think he's making decisions almost too quickly in the sense where he's coming off the ball way sooner than he needs to. He's become almost less available as an offensive threat instead of being more available simply because he's trying to make things happen too quickly to help embody this high-paced offense that this team is trying to push for. And I think everybody needs to slow down for a second and realize that this is going to take time. Realize that part of being able to integrate somebody in is first baby stepping your way through. Paulo needs to be more efficient. Franz has probably been the best player by far for this team through the first 4 games. A, he's been the most consistent. B, I think he's embodied the best versions of what it is that this team is trying to do in the early goings. And C, I think he's just kind of been a real stabilizing force, at least as a guy that, like, you can turn to Franz and say, okay, he's gonna have at least, his 20 ppg per on a nightly basis. Like, you don't have to worry about him hitting his quota, so to speak, right? The question is just where does he fit in everywhere else? So this kind of brings me to my question for you guys. And this is going to pump a lot of what my episode tomorrow is going to be as we, progress into the next game where I believe the Orlando Magic run into, yes, the Detroit Pistons. My question is, excuse me, let me fix that. My question is, on a scale of 1 to 10, where is your panic meter at 1 week into the season? Again, this is subject to change. But the team is 1-3 through 4 games, 0-1 to kick off a road trip that includes the 76ers, who they just lost to, the Detroit Pistons, the Charlotte Hornets, who have been relatively solid through the first 3 to 4 games, the Washington Wizards, and then you take on the Atlanta Hawks again, but on the road before you get into NBA Cup play against the Celtics. This feels like, if I was just in a vacuum to look at this run and look at the talent on the board for the Magic, it feels like the Magic should go into NBA Cup group stage at least 3-1 through these next 4 games. It feels, which is why my panic meter personally is at about a 3, maybe a 4, because my blood pressure is spiking up a little high by seeing these 3-point shooting numbers. But if I'm looking at it, I think the Pistons they should be able to hang with, and I think the Pistons, Paolo Banchero, Cade Cunningham. That's going to be the headliner for the game, and I think that Paolo Banchero needs to prove and should prove that he is just as talented as Cade Cunningham, despite the fact that all these top 100 rankings over the summer made it seem like there was this clear gap between him and Cade. I don't think there is. LaMelo Ball and the Hornets, they're playing good basketball right now. But you're telling me that you can't abuse rookie Ryan Kalkbrenner and Mason Plumlee, or Miles Plumlee, it's one of the Plumlees, in the paint, having Paolo Banchero, Franz Wagner, and Desmond Bain putting pressure on the rim? You telling me that those 3 guys can't completely assault the rim with Ryan Kalkbrenner and one of the Plumlee bros underneath? Completely unacceptable. The Wizards with Alex Sarr in the paint, he's a developing rim protector, but not somebody that I think should strike fear to the point that Paolo Banchero shouldn't see him as absolute food on the interior. And then the Atlanta Hawks, I say you got to go get that. I think that's a go get back. I think that's a get back game, because even that 111-107 game, that was just simply the Orlando Magic letting the game get too far ahead. This is yet another game, talking about the Sixers matchup. You can make the argument the Sixers, Bulls, and Hawks game were all games where they came out flat-footed and then tried to war their way back And despite the fact that things picked up really well for them in the second half, they just didn't have enough juice. Like the grave was already dug so deep that they couldn't climb all the way out of it by the game's end. And I think that this game against the Sixers was very similar to that. So I'm saying, okay, maybe that Pistons game is a little dicey, but the Hornets, Wizards, and the get back game against the Hawks, you got to go get these. This is an Orlando Magic team that I think realistically going into the group stage against the Boston Celtics should be at least 5-4. Now we'll revisit that statement when we get there, when we get to the group stage against Boston, at the on November 7th. They play Boston back to back at the crib. But me making this prediction early, this team should realistically be 5-4 by the time they start the NBA Cup stage. Now, the Athletic ranked this team as the 22nd best team in the NBA through the first week of the season. That was behind teams like Charlotte, behind teams like the Bulls. There's a couple of squads that when we came into this season, you didn't think you would hear their names above the Magic. Again, it's only been a week. So I don't want to overblow this, but I am interested to hear what you guys think about it because maybe I'm being too passive. Maybe I'm being a little too conservative about my thoughts through the first 4 games of the season. And maybe there's some things that I'm not seeing or that I'm missing in terms of needing to have more urgency behind this kind of start. Now, I told you guys that I thought this team I told you in the preseason, I think this team with the schedule that they have had the chance to start this season through their first, I believe it was 25 games. I said they would be about 21-4. It is not looking like they're on pace to do that. So we'll see what they do. I think it was their first 20 games. It was 16-4. Excuse me. They're not on pace to do that, given the fact that now the margin for error is one more loss in the next, what's that? In the next 16 games. So that's kind of heavy. But this is a team that desperately needs to kind of catch themselves, quickly. They need to get themselves back afloat because the talent and the production is not matching right now. I know they're trying to figure out the kinks. I know they're trying to figure out what the rotation is, but you don't lose yourself in the process of trying to make changes. You gradually introduce things step by step within a philosophy that already works. You're a team built off of being a great defense. You continue to build off of that, get Desmond Bain some more 3-point shots, and you build from there. This Orlando Magic team, it should be fine. It should be fine. And again, maybe I'm just being very nonchalant about it at the moment because I don't want to overblow 4 games. But it's looking kind of spooky. And they need to do something about it quickly because this is a team that really has a lot riding on a strong start to the season where they have a very favorable schedule where outside of this 5-game road stint that they have a lot of games at the crib. And even in this 5-game home and even in this first 20 games, they don't really play any Eastern Conference contenders very often. They play the New York Knicks twice and they played the New York Knicks 3 times by December 7th, and they do not play the Cleveland Cavaliers a single time until dang near the end of the first month of 2026. So they're going to be playing a lot of the middle of the pack Eastern Conference teams, your Indiana Pacers, Chicago Bulls, Toronto Raptors, Washington Wizards, Brooklyn. We're talking about the middle and bottom portions mainly in terms of the talent pool. They need to get this ball back rolling. But to close the podcast out with a general question, what is you guys' panic? Where is you guys' panic meter on a scale of 1 being very calm, very chill, 4 games, not really sweating it, to 10 as in I know it's only 4 games, but what in the world am I watching on a night to night basis? It looks like we haven't. It looks like we're going nowhere fast, being the absolute other extreme. I'm interested to hear what you guys have to say in the comment section, mainly because I think I plan on building a lot of my next few episodes around this gauging of the community and what you guys feel are the biggest question marks, needs, issues, even the good things for the Orlando Magic over the next couple of games. So I really want to build an understanding of where the fan base is in the very beginning of this season as we see this team slowly but surely trying to figure things out. So I'll be in those comments, definitely trying to hear what you guys have to say. With all that being said, this has been another edition of the Magic Layers Podcast. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe for daily Orlando Magic content. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace.